Hello, welcome. It's actually been a bit since I've had my full avatar out. God, hold on a minute. This needs to go away because it's not really applicable anymore. Hello, welcome. Um, I'm really kind of yeah. It is VTuber Euphony. Actually, I don't get to pull this out a lot because I'm kind of some games it runs a little. Oh wait, yeah, it runs a little unfortunate with. My computer's not beefy enough because I'm streaming on a laptop, which is I use Face Rig, and then I have a 2D rig that I commissioned from an artist, which you can see the artists. They're linked down in the description. Um, or not in the description. You know what I mean. But yeah, just face rig plus this. There is actually a simpler way. Um, if you've seen my 2D sprite that lights up in other streams, that's actually much simpler. I can actually send you a link to that probably after stream is done. Um, but yeah, that is not important right now. What is important is that this is a special new stream idea I had, which is doing stories based on suggestions by chat. Um Making up stories, that is. Um Now I might tend towards spooky stories because I like spooky stories a lot. I think they're fun. And I'm not talking about like horror necessarily, just kind of spooky. Um but I'm really going to play it by ear. See how things go with suggestions. But before we get started, I was thinking about having some background noise in, just like a little bit of ambiance, especially because you might be able to pick up the sound of my space heater, which I very much need because it's the only heat I have in my recording space, and it is in the 20s where I live right now. I currently have a jacket on while I'm recording. um, but yeah, ambiance. So I have a I have a royalty free rain I have some royalty free rain music that's just like a little bit of nice background music. Um but we could go for that. We could go for something more specific like some royalty free spooky music, or maybe some maybe like I don't know. We could just play some animal. Yeah. We could just play some Animal Crossing music. I mean, here's the thing: if spooky stories don't work out, um, Beethoven, we could do some Beethoven. But yeah, if spooky stories don't work out, we could always run into like we could just run into a game, switch over to like Hades or something. Um, but yeah, Beat 7. Let's just do. I'm gonna just put this on and let me know if this sounds like nice. Oh wait, wait, hold on a minute. I just realized, I don't even have what I need. I need to put in a new audio layer. Oh no, this is horrible. I've messed it up already. All right, there we go. uh. So this is actually my. So I have a special scene for this because normally my I have this scene up, which is different, and has a different audio capture. This scene cannot capture my audio that's being used. So let me see. There should be. It's been a while since I messed with this. Point. Don't really worry about it. It's mostly just a lot of like talk about how I have things set up on my stream. Um, it's not real. It's not important. It's just um An explanation that really nobody needed. Hmm. Oh yeah, of course. Hold on. Yeah, okay, so. Sorry, I'm like remembering how to do this. So I have to it takes me just 1 second. Alright. Now this is just a little background. Just some nice light rain. So if that's let's see. Hold on. If that's good or bad, just let me know. If it's too loud or too light. I just want to have like a little something going on in the background. Make this a little homey. Alright. I'm drinking water for once tonight because I'm doing this is gonna be a talk heavy stream. So I decided to treat myself. Instead of drinking drink brand drink, I'm gonna have water brand water. So yeah. Alright, let's get started. Do you have a suggestion, Roach? Just like a sentence or maybe a couple words for me to form a story around? If not, I have a couple short stories I've just kind of like made while I was like just goofing off, or I don't know. One of them was based on a dream, but I think I'm gonna save that one in case, because it's one I'm a little happy with. Kitty holding the knife. All right. Let me think about what I can do with that. Um. Hmm. Now, Roach, do you mind if I just turn this into a little tale of horror, or do you want something fun and carefree? Because I can try and do more fun and carefree. My mind instantly takes this into like short horror story territory because I guess that's where I'm comfortable. But okay. Um. So, this is the story of This is the story of a couple who had moved together for just a few weeks. Um, the couple consisted of a girlfriend, a boyfriend, and the girlfriend's cat. Um, Things went pretty typical. They shared the responsibilities of the house, although the boyfriend was never happy with the girlfriend's cat. He thought it got in the way too much, caused too much of a mess, left hairs in places. But the girlfriend wouldn't budge. She said this cat was special to her. And so, things went on as normal until things in the relationship began to get strained. The boyfriend would come in later, angrier, sometimes drunk. He didn't want to deal with his responsibilities, and he certainly didn't want to deal with their cat. Um, Things came to a tipping point one day, or one night rather, when he came in drunk and angry and began shouting and yelling at the girlfriend, saying that tomorrow the cat had better leave or he would. And they went to bed. The next morning the boyfriend was gone, and in his place the cat laid on their bed. The girlfriend began searching. She certainly didn't hear any commotion when the boyfriend left this morning, and his things were still everywhere. So she began to search the house. As she did, her cat followed her around, meowing and meowing. I can't get you food right now. I need to find out what's happened. I need to know if he's gonna come back. I need to know where he went. I need to know if he was bluffing last night or if he really intends to leave. And so she continued to search. But she couldn't find anything. She couldn't find a trace of the boyfriend anywhere. So then she decided to get her cat food. She couldn't find the boyfriend. She figured he was just out, I guess, venting. So she went to grab her cat some food. But when she poured the food out, she noticed the cat wouldn't come and eat. It just kept meowing and then would walk slightly away and come back and see what she was doing. After doing this a few times, the girl decided to follow the cat. And she followed the cat all the way to their front door. The cat started pawing at the door as if to be let out. She didn't understand. She takes her cats on walks on occasion, of course, but it wasn't the time for that. He was never like this. And so she leashed him up and opened the door out. She guessed it was just some strange behavior. And together they walked down 3 flights of stairs down onto the streets below, the cat pulling and pulling on the leash, trying to get her to go faster and faster. And she took it at her own pace. She would not allow her cat to move her. And still, they went until they wound up in a part of town she hadn't been to before. And the cat started to take them down an alley. She pulled the cat. She didn't want to go. It was dark. It was not safe. But the cat wouldn't budge. And then the cat pulled out of her grip and ran off down the alley. And she stood for a moment. She was scared, but she had to go and get her cat back. She couldn't leave her cat here. It was all she had left. And so she ran down the alley, following the sounds of meow, meow, down and down into a maze of corridors until she saw her cat. And her cat was holding something in its teeth. It was a knife stained in blood. And she stopped. And the cat ran again, further. And she chased again, and then she saw it. The body of her boyfriend stabbed to death. The knife in her cat's teeth. And she screamed. It took about 20 minutes for the police to show up. The knife was just a regular kitchen knife that could be found anywhere. They couldn't find any evidence on the body, just the things from her apartment. You know, things like cat hair. The end. Anyway, ad-lib short story. No. She didn't get arrested. You can draw your own conclusions about what happened. Maybe the cat was supernatural and killed him. Maybe he just got killed in an alley, but the cat was smelling him and went out to see, wanted to find him. Maybe the girlfriend killed him and didn't even remember it. Who can say? It's your conclusion to draw. But that's the story. So, like I said, that's what I mean when I say I tend more toward horror, because you know, I'm kind of like I kind of like or spooky stuff. Maybe not horror, but spooky, because I don't know, it's just easier for me, I guess. Um, hmm. If you want, I can say one of my other prepared stories. Since, well, not prepared. I guess prepared. They're stories that I made up before. One of them more on the fly than the other. Because one of them was, so one of them, I have like two stories ready. One of them I made up on the fly for like an IRL friend, and the other I made up, based on a dream I had. Um, so yeah, this is the story of the tailor's mummy. And the fun thing about this story is, it's actually based off of a, dumb bit that was, it's based on a one-line bit from, The Adventure Zone, uh, where a character says in a scary story voice, "This is the tale of the old sailor's mummy." And then I was making jokes about doing short stories with my friends and said, "This is the tale of the old tailor's mummy," instead of sailor, and then I made the story. So anyway, it's got a little fun backstory about it. So, in um, this story takes place in the early 1900s. Um, it is the story of a tailor who is a descendant of an ancient Egyptian ruler who was never buried. The family, the ruler was never allowed a proper burial in their lifetime, and so instead they passed the mummy down from parent to child over and over again until the mummy could be buried proper. This had wound up to the mummy belonging in the attic of a tailor shop. That tailor being the very last member of the family. But the tailor wasn't doing too well. Their shop was failing, and they were really on their last legs. And that's when it happened. A rich individual strode into their shop and began looking around. They wanted to do anything they could to please this individual. It was all that they had before they would lose everything. And so they showed them everything they had, every work that they had produced, every outfit, every fabric, every design. But they weren't impressed. And they were about to leave. And that's when the tailor said, "There is one more fabric I have that might suit someone of your taste. Wait right here." And they went into the attic. And they walked over to the mummy that had belonged in their family for generations. And they said to them, "This is our last chance. I'd like to use your wrapping." And they felt like they were allowed to. And so they snipped off a small swatch and took it downstairs. And when the rich individual felt this cloth, they were overjoyed. I've never felt anything like this. It's so extravagant, so unique. If you could make me up a suit out of this, I would pay you well. And the tailor agreed. And so, as the rich individual departed, the tailor made their way upstairs and began disrobing the mummy, taking bit by bit off in order to make a suit that this individual wanted. And as they did, as they took more and more away, they eventually ran out of wrapping, just enough to finish. And when they did, they saw there was nothing underneath. The tailor was frightened, but they knew they'd gone too far already. There was nothing more they could do. except for to deliver the outfit. And so they did. The rich individual came to their shop later that afternoon, ready to pick it up. They were so excited. They said, I'm glad that I was able to pick it up in time. I happen to have a rich event I'm going to tonight with many of my... I'm hosting an event tonight with many of my friends. I'm sure that you will, I'm sure that I will be able to send many customers your way. They will all want to have a suit like mine. To which the tailor responded, I'm sure they would, but I'm afraid this is the only suit I can make. This outfit is one of a kind. And the rich individual said, even better, and went on their way. And things were quiet for a while, until later that night, a radio bulletin came across. The person's mansion where they had been hosting the party had sunk deep, deep into the ground. A sinkhole had opened up, burying it. A tomb for everyone inside. And when they finally uncovered the body, it was mummified. The end. He got that ancestor got a rich burial after all. Huh. I like how you just saw my person drinking when there wasn't any water. So yeah. There's number 2. The other story was, funnily enough, a story about the rain. Would you like to hear it? Now this is based on a dream I had. So these other stories I made up. Just like based on phrases or things, but this was based on a dream. So, this story begins This story begins in the afternoon of a dark and gray day. It's one of those days where the clouds are full and ready to just drop water onto the earth as much as possible, but they haven't begun yet. The rain hasn't started yet, but it's ready. You can see it in the clouds. You just don't know when. It actually starts in the car of an individual driving to the store to pick up dinner for the night. And as they open the door, the rain begins to fall in a very small mist upon the ground. I'm going to do this in first person because I think it's a little more impactful that way. As I open the door to move into the grocery store, the rain began to fall in a very light mist, and I began walking. And as I made my way inside, I heard something. Like someone speaking to me from very far away. But I couldn't make anything out. I looked around the parking lot. There were people. There were moms wrangling their kids into minivans and workers helping old ladies load their groceries into their vehicles. But, there was nobody speaking to me. And so I went inside. By the time I got what I needed and got out, it was dark. and the parking lot was nearly empty. The only cars that remained were for what 2 or 3 shoppers were left inside, and my own, and the workers, of course. And so I stepped out into the rain, now a light drizzle, and began to make my way to my car. And I heard something, or someone. I couldn't tell what they were saying, if they were even talking to me. But I couldn't see anyone. I got a little creeped out and I hurried to my car. I opened it up. I threw the groceries in and locked the doors. Checked the back seat, of course, as you never know when somebody's gonna hide there. Of course there was no one, and with the door closed, the noise subsided. I turned the radio on just in case. I didn't want to be worried. And I made my way home. And as I did, the rain increased. And when I got home, I opened the door. The rain was coming down harder now. But worse than that, I heard someone again. It was clearer than before, louder than before, closer than before. And it was asking me questions. Who are you? What is your name? Where do you live? What is this place? What is its name? Who do you love? Who do you know? Over and over. A new question, not stopping. And I closed the door. But muffled, I could still hear it outside. Muffled like the rain against the hood of my car, I could hear it still, asking the question. And I looked. I took my phone out, turned the flashlight on. I looked around my car, but there was no one there. I didn't have any neighbors. There was no one who should be there, but I could hear them. I waited 1, 2, 5 minutes. The questions didn't stop, but I couldn't see anyone. I made a run for my door. And I locked it behind me. And I could still hear it muffled against the door, but it wasn't inside. And I locked them. I locked them tight. And I turned the TV on. I turned the radio on. I tried to muffle it out. It was still there, but it was quieter. And the rain became a downpour. And it got louder. It started asking more questions, louder. It would not take no for an answer. And I could hear it. It was still muffled, but it was so loud. I could hear it through the walls. I could hear it through the door, but there was no one there. I checked all the windows. I checked the door. There was no one there. And then there was a crash. And a limb fell through the ceiling, piercing it, and water began dripping in. And then I knew where the noise was coming from. It was coming from the puddle of water slowly dripping into my living room. From that water, I could hear the questions. I could hear them in my mind. They were wet, and they were muffled like the water, like the rain pounding against the roof. I ran into my room. I could still hear it, except this time as the rain poured, as the rain thundered against my roof, I could hear it again, and it wasn't asking questions anymore. It was answering them. It was telling me who I am. It was telling me where I was, who I knew, what I was. And I pushed as many clothes against the bottom of the door as I could to keep any water out. But I couldn't, there was nothing I could do. Just hear the questions repeated back to me over and over and over again. Again. Until it got quiet. The rain still poured, but I couldn't hear. And then there was a knock against my door. Just a small 3-tap knock. And then again. I walked up to it. And I looked through the peephole. And I saw my friend. And I didn't understand, but I couldn't let her stay out there. I couldn't. And I started to open the door, and then I noticed something else. She was wet in a way that wasn't like she was stuck in the rain. She was wet in the way that I could see the ripples move across her form as she stood there in the hallway. She was wet in the way that I could hear the water in her lungs as she called me out by name. And as I stopped, my hand almost on the door, she looked directly at me and smiled. I stayed up, long past when the rains ended, long past when she'd left my doorway, whatever had left my doorway. I went to my car immediately, drove until I got to the nearest hotel, stayed there, made sure there were no leaks, made sure the doors were closed and the roof was fine, and that I had a towel pressed deep against the door. I didn't know the woman whose body they found drowned in the river far from her home. But I wonder if that might be what would have happened to me if I would have opened that door. The end! That one I've kind of been working on for a while. I kind of want to just, like, do a more edited version of that one. Like, record it and put it, like, on YouTube or something. Yeah, I typically don't, like, kill my characters as much. I think, like, near-death experiences, I feel like living with the knowledge of these horrible creatures is punishment enough. And even if you don't die now, that doesn't mean you survive forever. So yeah, those are the two stories that I had prepared. Also, your house is infested with vermin. Ooh. I'm glad that you liked the knock sound effects. I just have a wooden. I work on I work at a wooden desk, so it was fun to do a little bit of Foley in there. I also like that a more funny version. Okay. Okay. Alright. I think I have something. Now, I might get a little spooky at times, but I promise, if you'll stick with me through to the end, that this will be a good, funny story. So... You heading out, Roach, for a minute? Because if so, I might just take a quick break, drink some water, and we'll start when you come back, since it was your suggestion. Alright, let me know when you come back. Oh, Bobby kills immediately. Also, hey. Welcome back. I had to go kiss Puppy immediately. Also, hey, Stro. Did you catch any of the stories? um, and now I'm gonna be doing a, it's unfortunate. I've been doing some spooky stories, but I'm taking a break and gonna do a little lighthearted, story. The prompt, from Roach, was, my house is infested with vermin. And I'm gonna make a little silly story out of it. I've mostly been doing spooky stories because I like spooky stories, and I'm better at spooky stories. But if you want to think up a prompt, I can do yours after I get done. So, on to the story. Um, it happened on the day I moved into my grandmother's old house. She hadn't left it to me in her will, but my grandmother didn't left a will. So when nobody else in the family needed it, I decided to move in. Rent was high at my old place, and so I decided that it would be a nice change to live somewhere more homey, where I wouldn't have to spend so much every month. Um, Things went very well. Um, that was before I found out about the mouse problem. Um, it started very innocuous at first. I would have a little less food than I expected to have. Um, or I would find the fridge left just slightly ajar when I'd wake up in the morning. And I chalked it up to misremembering or just um, forgetting when I was awake late at night. But that was until I saw one morning, standing in front of the fridge, a small mouse. And as soon as it saw me, it bolted. Of course, I wasn't going to make a move to stop it. Mice weren't really my specialty, and even if they were, there was nothing I could do here. With unarmed, nothing to do. So I decided to get a live trap. A trap that would catch the mice once they entered into it, and then I could deposit them outside where they belong. I set it out next to the fridge. Put a small piece of cheese in there. I know it's cliche, but that's how it is. And I left it. And when I woke up the next morning, the cheese was gone, but the trap was not sprung. Well, that's not entirely true. The trap was sprung, but there were no mice inside, and I couldn't understand it. I set it up a few more times, and again, each time it was sprung, but there were no mice. And things got stranger as I would see mice more often in unexpected places as I began to look for them. I would be watching TV in the bedroom at night, and I would turn and I would see mice on the bookshelf watching it as well. But as soon as I saw them, they would run. And I would be in the bathroom washing my hands, and I would look over and see a mice taking a small piece of the soap and running away with it. It was strange, but not something I wanted to make an issue out of. I, of course, didn't want to hurt the mice. I never saw mice as vermin, and I'm sure my grandmother never did either. But things were getting weird. And so I asked my uncle to come out and help me with this problem. And so we decided to fetch out a few more live traps. He had had a similar problem not a few years back himself, and stayed the night. And the next morning, I woke up to the strangest sight I've ever seen. It was a mouse standing on my chest, unafraid. And in the tiniest, squeakiest voice, it said, "We were content to let you live here, especially when you offered us treats. But frankly, things have gone a little too far." And I blinked. And I couldn't quite understand what was happening until the mouse pulled out a piece of paper and unfurled it in front of me. "It is clearly stated here in the will that the mice will inherit the house. We're willing to let you stay here, but we're gonna have to talk about a few house rules." The end. Silly little goofy mouse story. I know the endings aren't very strong, but I don't want to go into like too much detail. I think like I feel like pulling the trigger, and then just like yeah, just like letting y'all draw your own real conclusions about how things continue, how things got into this situation, what this world is fun. And that might be like more because I am like accustomed to eerie stories. Wherein if you end on a shock, it's nice. Yeah, grandma hey, grandma knew the family didn't need this house, but these mice sure fucking did. uh. Do you have any, do you potentially have a, story suggestion, Strail? If not, I might just, swap over to, um, Hades. Because I'm a little storied out. You just woke up in a swamp shack? Ooh, yeah, getting back to the scary story. Alright, let me think about what I actually have another story. I, well, I've told two stories to Roach here. When I was, uh, short on prompts. So I think I'll do this story, one more story, and then maybe hop into Hades. Um, so we'll do, the Swamp Shack. So, um, it was maybe the strangest morning I'd ever had. There had been nights that I couldn't remember previous, but none where I'd woken up in a place quite as strange as this. The old shack was clearly handmade from tree wood. It creaked with the winds blowing overhead. And the bed I was in was, well, unconventional to say the least. The posts looked handmade like the walls, and the bedding itself wasn't a mattress as much as it was just a pile of whatever furs might belong there. Obviously I was freaked out, but I thought there must be some reason I was here, something that had happened, and so I stepped out of bed and looked around. Everything seemed fine. I was not injured, but I didn't have my phone. I couldn't understand where that went. I decided to look around. It wasn't big, just one room. I couldn't see any sign of modern technology. There was no computers, not even a bookshelf or any books. It was just a small stove, the bed behind me. I could see the door though, and I made my way to it. Again, I say door, but it was very crude, handmade. I guess maybe crude isn't the right term. It was handmade, it was non-modern, but that doesn't mean the craftsmanship was bad in any sense of the word. It worked as a door, just not in any way I was familiar with. And I opened up and looked out into the Louisiana swamp around me. I I'd always lived within a few miles of the swamps, but I'd never visited them myself. Legends of creatures or people somewhere out there that didn't want visitors were always enough to keep me away. I couldn't understand how I got here. Maybe it was a dare, I thought to myself. I tend to get cocky when I drink, and when that happens, I'll do just about anything. That must be it, I said, and closed the door behind me. Of course, that didn't get me any closer to going home. I decided to look around the place, see if I could find my phone. It had to be somewhere if this is where I went. Maybe I'd wound up in the middle of the swamp drunk and just found a cabin to lie down in. Maybe that was it. Of course it wasn't. No sooner had I begun stepping away than I felt my body seize up. I tried to move forward, but my leg stood frozen, half step in the air. But I could set it backwards without any issue. And I couldn't understand what was happening. I tried to reach my arm up, and as if the blood, the muscles themselves had turned solid, I couldn't. After I reached so far, my hand just stopped. And so I began to make my way around, and I tried again to push my arm out, to push my hand out far beyond, and I couldn't. There was something stopping me from leaving this place. And then I remembered what it was. I remembered what had happened the night before. I was drunk, admittedly. But I shouldn't have been drunk enough to follow that lady out here into the swamp, into this house. And what happened next? My blood on the floor. I couldn't believe it. I tried to push out to go. I tried going under the earth, over the rails, into the water, but no matter what, that force stopped me, kept me here. And so I could feel it. I could feel it pulling me. A force pulling me back into the shack where I had awoken this morning. And as much as I hated, as much as I did not want to see what I had remembered, I knew at this point it didn't matter any longer. And so I walked back into the cabin and walked over and saw on the floor where I hadn't seen before a large splatter of blood. And as I walked further back to the bed that I'd woken up into, I saw my body, pale and lifeless, cut open. I don't know what she did last night. I'm not alive, and I'm not dead. And I'm stuck here. forever. The end. I hope that was good. I like spooky stories. Spooky is my preferred method. You should watch the VOD Strel because I did there's a story that I'm pretty like proud of, and you can ask Roach. It was the scariest by far. Um according to them. Um uh but yeah. We'll do one more and then we'll swap over to Hades. This is another story I came up with on the fly with friends. So it's not I'm not coming up with it on the fly now, but you know, it's just a small little one. This is the story of the junkyard zombie. Now, this story begins long before the present. Sorry, Tony. Hey, if you give me a Tony, if you give me a suggestion, I'll do a new story. I was mostly gonna swap over to Hades because I didn't have I didn't have a lot of people watching, and I didn't want to just take suggestions from one person over and over. But if you give me a suggestion, I'll make another story with it. And while you're thinking of that, we'll tell the story of the junkyard zombie. So and you can, if you have a preference, if you want a scary story, a funny story, or just like lighthearted story, whatever, I can try. I'm better with spooky stories, but I'm willing to do anything. I did a nice little lighthearted, fun story about mice earlier, but this is not that. This is the story of the junkyard zombie. So, to begin this story, we need to go just a few years back. This story starts with Old Man Wilson. He's a recluse. He collected old cars and other things, but in his time alive, people said as he collected things, his yard slowly filled up from just a small patch of grass into a maze of cars stacked one on top of the other, large, high up to 10 feet into the air. People said he did it on purpose. People said Old Man Wilson had a treasure that he hid in his yard, and that he had stacked his yard full of junk to hide it where no one could get it. People would sometimes, mostly kids, try and go find the treasure, but they'd always get scared out by the old man before they could get very far. He didn't like people on his property. The rumors died down, and things in the small town went back to normal until the day Old Man Wilson died. And with new invigorate, leaving no will, the yard stayed untouched. No one yet willing to haul everything that was in there out. 3 teenagers, feeling it was their only chance, decided to sneak in and try and find the old man's treasure. And they did. One night, late, 12 a.m., they found their way to Mr. Wilson's old yard and made their way in to the maze of junk. They walked in, trying to navigate, trying to find something of value in the large stacked cars, the old rusted parts peeking out of the ground, the shattered finery, shattered china, across the ground. It looked more like a junkyard than some that they had found, than the actual junkyard of the town. And they wondered to themselves if this wasn't a place people would just go to throw their garbage, and Old Man Wilson simply was happy to have his yard increased. They'd been in there for a couple hours. They were deep into the yard now. It was all twists and turns. They couldn't tell how far it really extended out for, but they were deep in it now. And that's when they saw it. A dirt mound, disturbed in ways nowhere else had been. If this is where the treasure was, if the treasure was real, it had to be here, they said to themselves. And so, they took a nearby shovel, and they began to dig. Slowly they did. They wanted to make sure whatever it was, if it was valuable, they didn't hurt it. And so they dug, just slightly, dirt, handful and scoopful, out of the way, until they saw the top of a small chest. They yelled congratulations, happy to have found what they had come looking for. They took together, they unearthed one of the handles and started to pull, and they pulled and tried to wrench it from the earth. And as they just barely pulled it above where they had been digging, they saw there was something else attached to it. A pair of old, dead hands. Ripped tight around the chest. And they screamed and backed away. And they didn't know what to do until one boy, the oldest among them, the clear leader of the group, said, "It's just, I don't know what Old Man Wilson was getting up to, but it's just a pair of dead hands, and I came here for that treasure, and I'm going to have it." And so he made his way over. He took his hands and uncurled the fingers one by one from the treasure chest on both sides and pulled it up. The other two were too afraid to do this, of course, but they stayed and watched, and as he came out triumphant, they cheered. And then he yelped as he fell and was slowly pulled back into the grave. And the two screamed, and he screamed as he was pulled down into the dirt that he had just uncovered. The other two didn't stick around, didn't try to find out what happened. They ran. They ran far into the maze, but they couldn't find their way back. There were too many turns. There was too much there. The cars were stacked too high. They couldn't climb out. And they heard the screaming stop. They ran faster, further, but they couldn't get out. They could not find the exit. They decided to split up. They said that they would call the other when they found a way to help. But they never found a way out of that maze. The three boys were never found. Their bodies lay, undisturbed, with the rest of Old Man Wilson's treasure. Ta-da! There you go. Old Man Wilson's not gonna fuck around while you take his treasure. Fuck no. No, he was more than a pair of hands. The pair of hands was just all that was, sticking out of the dirt. I didn't get into the full zombie description. But Old Man Wilson was more than a pair of hands. He was just, yeah, he stole them kids. So Tony, you got a prompt for me? If not, we can go to Hades. It's up to you. Real treasure was the Old Man Wilson we met along the way. But yeah, if you have a prompt, we can go for that. If not, I may swap to Hades for a little bit. Probably just one round of Hades. And I say probably just one round of Hades because one round of Hades is like an hour. Alright. I hope you had fun, though. I hope everyone enjoyed the stories. We might do another story night. We'll see how things go. But for now, hold on. I'm gonna go to my pre-screen while I get things set up. And we'll take a little break. So yeah, I'll be right back.